The chandeliers sparkled above the lavish ballroom, their golden light cascading across gowns and tuxedos, laughter and whispers mingling with the sound of clinking glasses. It was the kind of place where power was not just spoken, it was performed, flaunted, and displayed like a crown. And in the center of it all, a woman stood tall, her presence commanding attention even when she said nothing. She was a black woman CEO, the youngest in her industry, known for building an empire from the ground up. She had not inherited privilege. She had not married into wealth. She had clawed her way through struggle, through rejection, through nights when doors slammed in her face, and had arrived at this night not just as a guest, but as the one who held the power to seal or break a billion-dollar deal. Yet as she stood there in her emerald gown, poised with a grace that masked the battles she had fought, she could feel the eyes upon her, not all admiring, not all kind. In the shadows of the grand gala, a billionaire family, powerful in name and legacy, whispered among themselves. To them, she was not a business partner, not a visionary, not an equal. To them, she was an outsider, someone whose very presence at their table disrupted the world they thought they owned. The murmurs grew into smirks, smirks into laughter, and the moment came like a slap in more ways than one. It began with a cruel joke, disguised as wit, wrapped in entitlement, that echoed too loudly across the polished floor. She smiled at first, trying to let it pass. But then came the act that no one expected. One of the family members, with arrogance soaked in privilege, raised a hand, not in greeting, not in respect, but in humiliation. A slap. The sound cracked through the ballroom like glass shattering, silencing the violins, silencing the laughter, silencing the air itself. For a moment, she did not move. Her cheek burned, not from the strike itself, but from the centuries of echoes that lived in that moment. The weight of history, the weight of disrespect, the weight of being seen as less than human in a room where she had more power than anyone else. The guests froze, some pretending to look away, some watching with fascination, but none stepping forward. Because that was the truth of power. It revealed who stood for dignity and who shrank in the face of it. Her breath caught in her throat, but her eyes did not waver. She could feel the fear others might expect her to feel, the anger that clawed inside her chest, but stronger than both was her clarity. She had not fought for everything she had, only to shrink in the face of ignorance. She had not built an empire, only to let one family's cruelty dictate her worth. And so, in the silence that followed, she did something no one could have predicted. She straightened her back, adjusted the emerald gown on her shoulders, and walked, not away in shame, not into retreat, but toward the very table where the billion-dollar deal was waiting to be signed. Every step she took echoed across the marble floor, each heel striking like thunder, each movement daring anyone to question her place. She sat, calm, composed, regal. The documents lay before her, the ink waiting to mark history. But instead of reaching for the pen, she placed her hands gently on the table and looked into the eyes of the family that had tried to humiliate her. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. Her words, when they came, were sharper than steel and stronger than stone. She told them that money could build palaces, but it could not build character. She told them that empires built on cruelty were destined to crumble. And then, with a grace so powerful it shook the room, she stood, left the contract untouched, and turned her back on the billion-dollar deal. In that moment, she redefined what power meant. But what the crowd didn't know was that behind that bold act was a lifetime of struggle, sacrifice, and choices that had prepared her for this very night. And as she left the gala, the whispers followed, some in awe, some in anger, but all unable to ignore her. Because sometimes walking away is louder than staying. Friends, if you believe in dignity, in second chances, and in the courage to stand tall when the world tries to push you down, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Echo Tales. Your support keeps these stories alive, stories that remind us of the strength we carry within. The night air was cooler than the ballroom, but it was not silence she walked into. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, reporters already circling, colleagues sending messages of shock, investors questioning what had happened. Some were worried about the lost deal, about the billions that had slipped through their fingers in a single gesture, but she was not. For her, that contract was not the measure of her success. Respect was, dignity was, and she refused to sign away her soul for paper and ink. Yet the decision had not come without cost. She thought of her employees, of the thousands, of families whose futures were tied to her company. She thought of the promises she had made, of the risks she had taken. She knew people would question her choice, accuse her of letting emotions interfere with business, of walking away from wealth that could have changed the game. And yes, doubt whispered in her mind because she was human. Because even the strongest leaders carry the weight of responsibility in their hearts. But as she looked up at the night sky, she remembered why she had begun this journey in the first place. She remembered the days when she had worked 3 jobs to pay for college, the nights when she studied by candlelight because the power had been shut off, the times she walked into boardrooms where no one looked like her, and how she never allowed their stares to silence her. She remembered the promise she made to herself, that she would build something that wasn't just for her, but for the next girl who dared to dream, for the next child who was told they did not belong. And then came the twist no one expected. By morning, headlines exploded. Not about her failure or her lost deal, but about her refusal to be broken. Social media erupted, not with mockery, but with support. People around the world saw her not as a woman who walked away from billions, but as a woman who reminded them that dignity has no price tag. Messages poured in from strangers, from young women who saw in her a reflection of what was possible, from men who admitted that her courage made them rethink the way they viewed strength. But the most shocking response came from an unexpected source. Another billionaire family, known for their integrity, who had watched the events unfold. They reached out, not with pity, not with arrogance, but with respect. They told her that anyone willing to walk away from billions for her principles was the kind of partner they wanted to stand beside, and within weeks, she had not only replaced the deal she walked away from, but surpassed it, on her terms, with partners who valued her for more than her signature on a contract. The family that had slapped her, they were left exposed, their arrogance turned into scandal, their empire cracking under the weight of public outrage, because cruelty may intimidate for a night, but it cannot build a legacy. And so she stood, once more stronger than before, proof that real power is not measured by the wealth you gather, but by the moments when you choose dignity over compromise. She did not just rise from that slap. She transformed it into a movement, one that reminded the world that respect is not given. It is demanded by the way you carry yourself. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe even more in courage, dignity, and standing up for what matters most, then I ask you from the bottom of my heart, like this video, share it, comment on it, and subscribe to Echo Tales. Your voice matters, and your engagement helps these stories reach those who need them most. And before we end, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. What does dignity mean to you? This was another powerful story from Echo Tales, where every tale carries a heartbeat.